If everybody around you thinks small, eventually, like, don't you think eventually you're gonna start thinking small as well? Like, I don't care how you twist it, bend it, flip it, you will eventually shrink to fit the room. This is Rent Free Radio. I'm Jay Ford. Make sure y'all hit that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, so y'all can always be tuned in on these conversations. And definitely leave a comment. Let me know what live rent free for y'all. Let's talk about it. And speaking of which, today we talking about why your environment might be the reason you stuck. Let's be honest. You don't rise to your potential. You rise to your standards. And your standards are often shaped by, who you're around daily. Your circle, and if they normalizing BS, you know, ultimately that's what's gonna, make the difference of what I'm talking about. If your circle normalize excuses, late starts, broke mentalities, emotional chaos, lack of discipline, guess what becomes normal? Those things are typically what will become normal. You can't live in a room full of excuses and expect to breathe excellence. That's just not how that works. That's not the biology. That's not the pigmentation of success. If your five closest people lack discipline, they lack things like accountability, vision, structure. Statistically, you gonna mirror that. So, that's something to be mindful of. Energy transfers, standards transfer, limits transfer. That's not my opinion. That's proximity, and we can argue, oh, that's fake. Real friends stick together no matter what. We to the grain, we from the soil, we from the mud together, But let's define stick together. If your group, if your growth threatens the group dynamic, if your ambitions make people feel uncomfortable, if they start to, downplay your goals or whatever, are they sticking with you, or are they protecting the group identity? Because sometimes, loyalty, it can become a leash, right? And oftentimes we be held back and we don't even be knowing. Think about this. If your circle clap for you when you struggling, they all joyful and cheerful when you struggling, you going through the motions. But then they get quiet when you win. They get quiet when things start to work in your favor, when God start to answer your prayers. That's not support. That's containment. Humans, we fear exclusion. We fear being excluded from some shit more than failure. So we unconsciously will downshift. We'll soften our ambitions. We'll laugh off our goals. We'll procrastinate in the public eye. So it don't look like we doing too much or we being extra. And why though? Because standing out, it risks social friction, social tension, and those tensions can feel dangerous to the brain. That's a natural response, But here's the trade-off, right? Comfortable circles rarely produce uncomfortable success. You don't have to abandon people, so to say, but you definitely gonna have to expand beyond them. And expansion will expose who was in alignment with your growth, and who was just really attached to who you used to be, your old ways of living and doing things. If you the most disciplined person in your circle, you need a new room. If you the most ambitious, you need new conversations. If ain't nobody around you challenging you to be a better person, you're not in the circle, my guy. You're not in a circle, my baby. You in a ceiling, and ceilings are meant to be broken. You know, ain't nobody coming to save you. Not your friends, not your family, not the algorithm, not the system, and definitely not the version of you that keep procrastinating. You know, some of us, we be waiting. We be waiting for support. We be waiting for validation, waiting for the perfect time, waiting for somebody to notice our potential. And let me simplify this, bro. The cavalry ain't coming, you know, and that shouldn't be depressing or none of that. You know, that should be empowering, because once you accept the fact that ain't nobody coming to save you, you can stop waiting. You can take accountability and responsibility for your life and be able to put in the actions, put in the work to get you to where you need to be in order to take care of your peoples. You know, hope without action is just a delay. Faith without work is dead. You know, it's a psychological pattern called learned helplessness. And basically it's like when people repeatedly feel powerless, they stop trying, right? Even if opportunity appears, they still stop trying. They still won't try. They won't put forth the effort, and that's dangerous. You know, inaction becomes identity, you know. And then that's when you had things like, oh, well, I guess I'm just not lucky. I guess, you know, that just wasn't for me. I guess that's just how life is. And no, bro, you adapting to the circumstances. You adapting to waiting. And waiting feels safer than risk and visible failure. But, you know, ain't nobody coming, because no one is responsible for your outcome. You're responsible for your outcome. You know, and then people, you know, on the flip side, you know, they're going to say, what about the community? What about the help? And please don't get this twisted, you know. I'm a big advocator for, let's just use this term right here. It takes a village to raise a child, right? So I'm big on community. You know, community is powerful. Mentorship is powerful. Support is powerful and valuable. But support multiplies effort. You know, it don't replace it, it multiplies it. If you're not active, can't nobody activate you. Can't nobody amplify you. If you're not disciplined, can't nobody rescue you. Can't nobody, if you're not consistent, can't nobody stabilize you. Can't nobody bring you into the space of consistency. You know, help finds movements. You know, it ain't looking for hesitation. And most people don't even need saving. They need structure. I need structure. Waiting feels productive. Planning feels productive. Talking feels productive. But ain't none of them getting you nowhere. No execution. No results. And the uncomfortable truth, a lot of people love the ideas of success, but they don't love the isolation that come with it. They don't love the repetition that come with it. You know, they don't love the discipline of doing things when ain't nobody watching. You know, happy Sunday, man. I woke up before the crack of dawn, brewed me a cup of coffee. I'm on my 4th cup of coffee right now. You did? I didn't, you know, I woke up and I said, hey, I'm finna go get to it. Don't nobody want to put in that work when ain't nobody watching. You know, people just want applauses without being constructive. You know, but applause only show up after the evidence. The evidence only shows up after the effort. And that's consistent effort, may I add. But ain't nobody coming. And once you stop expecting rescue, you gonna unlock that responsibility. And that responsibility and that accountability, that's where power lives. You know, ain't no more waiting for permission. Ain't no more waiting for motivation. Ain't no more waiting for alignment. You gonna build, you gonna execute, you gonna adapt. And if somebody join, cool. But they joining momentum that was already created. They ain't saving no potential. Hey, man, I'm Jay Ford, and this is Rent Free Radio. Thanks for tuning in, man. I'm going to catch y'all in a few.